What's up, y'all? Today we're going to be talking all about a static chicken coop versus rotational grazing and the pros and cons of each. So let's jump into it. All right, y'all, so let's jump right in, and I hope that by sharing the pros and cons of each of these options that you can make an educated decision for your context. All right, so let's start off with a static chicken coop and talk about the pros. I think the first pro to a static chicken coop is if you don't have a ton of space on your lot. Maybe you're just on a suburban quarter-acre lot, you're not out on acres and acres of pasture, then more than likely doing some type of static chicken coop is going to be best if you're in that type of context. Basically, when you build that static chicken coop, they're just going to have a designated area, a static run that they're going to be in for their entire life, and it won't ever be moved. It'll just be in that set location. And I think that's a big pro to using a static chicken run or static chicken coop. I think pro number two to a static chicken coop is there is a convenience factor to it. You know, once you build it, it's kind of set it and forget it, so to speak. Not in regards to you forgetting your birds, but it's built, it's done. You're not having to move equipment around. All you have to do is make sure the birds get put up at night, let them out in the morning, collect your eggs, and clean the coop. It's simple, and that's why a lot of people use a static chicken coop for their birds. I think your third pro is that a static chicken coop is often structurally more sound. Most of the time when you're building a chicken coop, they're pretty well built structures, and so I think that can actually be a pro to a static chicken coop. All right, so now let's get into some cons. First off, static chicken coops can be expensive. I'm talking $2,000 to $3,000. I know people that have easily spent that much building out a static coop. I think the second con is it's not their natural environment. When chickens are in a static chicken coop, they're gonna eat up all the grass and the bugs and the seeds that are currently there, and it's just gonna become just kind of a barren landscape. Chickens like to move about, they like to be on fresh ground, and so I think that's one of the biggest cons to a static chicken coop. I think the next big con is parasite and disease pressure. In a static chicken coop, they're always constantly on their own manure, which is going to multiply the parasite cycle and could potentially get your birds sick. And that's another huge con to this type of setup. I think another big con is you can't move a static coop. Once it's there and you've built it, more than likely it's there to stay. I think the last con is they're not as easy to clean, and it requires more cleaning. You've got to get inside their actual coop and put bedding down and clean that out probably once a week. So let's move over to the other option, which would be to rotationally graze your chickens using a mobile chicken coop or chicken tractor. This is the method that we personally chose on our homestead, but we also have multiple acres to where we can move our chickens about. So that moves me to the first pro of rotationally grazing your birds is that it's mobile. You can move it around and about, and that's a huge factor. You can even take it with you whenever you decide to leave, or let's say you sell your homestead and you're going to buy some more land. Then it gives you the option to take that coop with you and to be able to move those birds around when storms come or things of that nature. I think secondly, a huge pro to rotationally grazing is it's more of their natural environment. They're able to move about on fresh pasture, fresh ground. They're able to eat grass, which they can actually eat. Up to 20% of their diet can come from grass. So they're just in a much healthier type of environment. And ultimately, if your birds are healthier and they're able to scratch about and eat wild bugs and seeds and grasses and weeds, they're going to be healthier, and they're also going to produce a healthier egg for you and your family. If you're finding this content helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be a part of a community where you can get your questions answered and be a part of like-minded people, then you can join my private Facebook group. It's absolutely free to you, and we would love to have you. So the next pro is rotationally grazing using, electric fencing and a mobile coop is actually cheaper than building a $3,000 static coop. The setup that we personally have costs us probably around $1,500 total, not counting obviously buying the birds, but it's cheaper than building a really nice chicken coop. Another pro to rotationally grazing is you can save on feed costs. As I mentioned earlier, birds can eat up to 20% grass, and they're also getting to eat wild bugs and seeds, and so that's not even really taking that into account. One more pro to rotationally grazing, especially with this electric Premier One fencing, is it is a huge deterrent to any type of ground predator. When an animal comes up to that fence and gets shocked, I promise they will not return. My dog has been shocked by it one time, and she didn't get within 10 feet of the fence because, again, that pain is a huge deterrent to any type of ground predator. And we actually leave their coop open at night, and we've had no issues whatsoever from any type of ground predators with rotationally grazing them with the electric Premier 1 fencing. So the last pro is there's no cleaning to do. Our chicken coop has mesh floor, so we don't have to go and put fresh bedding in there all the time. And honestly, if the weather's good, they spend most of their time outside of the coop, moving around their paddock and just living a good life. All right, so let's talk about the cons of rotationally grazing your birds. It is more labor intensive. You're gonna have to either move your birds weekly or daily. We move our chickens once a week from paddock to paddock. So what we have to do when we do that is we have to take down the electric fencing and roll the birds to the new paddock and then set that fencing back up. All in all, it takes us about 20 to 25 minutes to do, and we do it once a week. It's not bad, but there are times, I'll be honest, there are times where I don't want to go do it. And that's where I'm like, oh man, a static coop would be nice at times. However, I know that in the end, this is much better for the birds. Another con to rotationally grazing is you need a large backyard or large acreage. Now, if you only had 3 hens, you could kind of rotationally graze them in your backyard. However, most people have more than 3 hens. We have 16, and so you just need a fair amount of space to be able to rotationally graze your birds. So the last con to rotationally grazing is you could potentially deal with aerial predators like hawks. We haven't dealt with that on our homestead, but if you don't have any type of tree cover and they're just out in the wide open pasture, then you could potentially deal with that. Again, we haven't had issues with that, but there are some other ways to mitigate it. All right, y'all, I hope that was helpful as you make your decision on what to do for your homestead. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.